The scent of grilled ribs still hung in the late summer air, mingled with the sulfuric sting of scorched skin and the echo of screams. Red plastic cups rolled across the grass like forgotten thoughts, scattered by the chaos. I didn't feel the heat on my arms as I pulled my son from the fire pit. I only felt his tiny body twitching in my arms, in the unbearable silence of the people watching. No one moved. No one helped. My brother-in-law, Mark, stood with one hand still extended from the shove, his smug face contorted in mock outrage. Scum like him shouldn't even eat, he had said. And then he did it. And my wife. God. My wife. She didn't scream. She didn't run to help. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "He's useless. Uncle's right," and turned back to her wine. My son, Benji, 8 years old, lay in my arms gasping. I cradled him as his shirt melted to his skin, his small chest heaving with shallow breaths. I rushed him to the ER myself, screaming into my phone at dispatch when they dared to ask, "Is it serious?" Burns. 3rd degree. Arm, shoulder, part of his side. They said he'd be okay, but the emotional damage, they added carefully, would need therapy. Years of it. He didn't cry in the hospital. Not once. He just asked me, "Why did they hate me, Dad?" I lied. Told him I didn't know. Told him they were drunk. Told him they were sick. But I knew. Benji was mine, not theirs. Not from her side. And they'd always seen him as less. My wife, Jill, had made excuses when I asked why Mark was so cold to him. "He's just joking," she said. "You're too sensitive." But there was always tension when Benji was in the room. Cold glances. Whispers. And now violence. The police came. They questioned Mark. And then left. Family misunderstanding, they called it. No arrest. No charges. The cookout was on their property. They claimed Benji had slipped. That I was overreacting. That maybe I had some issues, anger problems. I wasn't just betrayed. I was framed. The second worst day of my life came 2 weeks after the fire. That's when Jill served me breakfast like nothing had happened, like her son hadn't been hurled into open flames in front of 20 witnesses. "Are you still mad?" she asked, setting down eggs and toast like it was a normal Saturday. I looked at her. Really looked. I had once loved this woman so much it scared me. Now, when I searched her face for a trace of guilt or softness or shame, all I saw was calculation. She stirred her coffee slowly and said, "I talked to Mark. He said he's sorry it got out of hand. But you shouldn't have brought him. Him. Not Benji. Not our son. Him." I stood, my appetite gone. "You're referring to our child." Her eyes narrowed. "No. Your child. You've made that clear." And there it was. The truth she'd been carefully veiling behind years of civility. The truth that snapped everything into place. Jill had always wanted a child. Just not mine. Benji was from before her. From my first relationship, his mother, Sarah, had died in childbirth. Jill had claimed she accepted that. Said she understood he was part of the deal. But looking back now, she never hugged him without prompting. Never volunteered bedtime duty. Never kissed his scraped knees. She tolerated him. Because she wanted me. Because she wanted my income, my house, my name. She never wanted Benji. And Mark? He'd been hostile from the start. Subtle things, at first, snide jokes, rough play, accidents. I'd called him on it once, and Jill shut it down fast. "Mark doesn't mean it," she'd said. "Don't make waves." That morning, I watched her walk around the kitchen as if she hadn't whispered that my son was useless. I watched her pour juice. Slice bananas. Hum to herself. The mask didn't slip anymore. It cracked. "I want a divorce," I said. She stopped. Knife midair. Smile gone. "What?" "You heard me." And then she smiled again. A different kind of smile. Not confusion. Not fear. Triumph. "Good. Finally. I've been waiting for you to say it." I blinked. "You've what?" She leaned in close, her voice like ice. "You think anyone's going to believe you? A single dad with anger issues, screaming about conspiracies? We're the normal ones. You're the problem." The lawyer Jill hired called me Mr. Doyle, like we were strangers. His name was Spencer Grange, one of those boutique family law specialists who made fortunes helping beautiful women bleed their ex-husbands dry. The kind of man who wore $2,000 suits and smiled when he destroyed families. The summons arrived a week after our kitchen conversation. Petition for divorce. Petition for sole custody. Request for restraining order, temporary. Temporary, but devastating. The claim? Unstable temperament, emotional outbursts, endangering the child with confrontational behavior. The child. Not her child. Not Benji. Not once. She was trying to take him from me. The fire pit incident? Omitted entirely from the report. No mention of Mark's attack. No hospital photos. Just vague lines like, Mr. Doyle has exhibited volatile behavior, including aggressive accusations and obsessive tendencies. I read the affidavit twice. Then a third time. It was all crafted to paint me as the threat. Not Mark. Not her. Me. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't reactionary. This was strategic. The cookout hadn't been an accident. It was staged. A setup. The entire family, the Wrights, the Langleys, even Jill's cousin Brian, who worked for the DA, they'd created a narrative. Make me look unstable. Provoke me. Wait for me to break. Then take the one thing I lived for. Benji. I didn't break. Instead, I called Lauren Finch. She was the only family lawyer I knew who cared more about the truth than her billable hours. We'd crossed paths years ago when I was doing corporate IT consulting and her firm needed forensic data work. I remembered two things about her. She was relentless, and she didn't bluff. She met me at a coffee shop near the courthouse. No makeup, blazer rolled to her sleeves. I read the petition, she said, sliding a file across the table. They're trying to corner you, Mason. She wants full custody, supervised visitation for you at best. If we don't act fast, you'll be a weekend visitor in your son's life. I need to prove what happened. The fire pit. Her words. The lies. You need evidence, she said. And not just photos of Benji's burns. You need testimony. Witnesses. Surveillance. Digital trails. I nodded. I can get that. Her eyes sharpened. How? They forget what I do for a living. Because I wasn't just a father. Or an ex-husband. Or a man with a broken heart. I was a cybersecurity analyst. I'd spent 15 years building airtight digital vaults for Fortune 500 companies, chasing hackers, building defense systems, unearthing Trojans buried under 10 layers of code. And now, I was turning those skills on the people who thought they could erase me. That night, I drove back to the hospital where Benji was still recovering. I wasn't allowed to stay long. Jill had made sure of that. A nurse watched me the entire time like I was radioactive. Benji smiled when he saw me, his arm in bandages. His spirit bruised, but not broken. Are we still a team, Dad? He whispered. I leaned in close and kissed his forehead. We're more than a team, buddy. We're survivors. And I never lose survivors. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my study, the same room where I'd once built firewalls for government contracts and exposed embezzlement schemes from Fortune 100 CEOs. But this wasn't business. This was war. And I wasn't building defenses. I was launching an offensive. First target, Mark Davis, my brother-in-law. The man who'd thrown my son into a fire and walked away whistling. I knew his habits. He used the same password for every login, some lazy combination of his favorite football player and a birth date. I'd cracked it a year ago when he asked me to fix his laptop after spilling bourbon on the keyboard. Back then, I erased his porn history. Now, I was digging for evidence. I mirrored his cloud backups silently. Phone, laptop, iPad. Took less than 15 minutes. The folders were a mess. Hundreds of videos, voice memos, texts. But around 9:30 p.m. on the night of the cookout, I found it. A voicemail draft. Unsent. Titled, Plan/Proof. I hit play. His voice crackled through the speakers, slurred and smug. Okay, so, here's what I'm gonna do. Gonna push the little freak into the fire. Make it look like a stumble. Jill said he's already clumsy, right? Mason flips. Of course he will. Guy's a ticking bomb. And boom. We've got what we need. No judge'll give him custody with that temper on file. I paused it. My hands were shaking, but not from shock. From fury. From validation. From knowing I was right. They planned it. Jill, Mark, maybe more. They baited me with fire and pain, knowing my instincts would scream. Benji's life had been put at risk for a courtroom strategy. I called Lauren the next morning. She picked up before the first ring finished. I've got something, I said. I played the audio over a secure line. She didn't interrupt once. When it ended, there was a pause. I'm filing an emergency petition to block the restraining order and reopen custody. But we need more. This proves premeditation, but it's still one man's word. We need to expose the network. Network? Oh, come on, Mason. You think Jill came up with this alone? So I moved to phase 2, digital mapping. Every message Jill had sent since February, every call, every deleted photo, even burner apps left a trace. I hadn't touched her phone since she added the fingerprint lock. But our home network still carried deep packet captures from my old parental control system. I decrypted them. What emerged was a hydra of deceit. Group chats with subject lines like "clean break" and "Plan B." Messages to her cousin Brian, a DA investigator, asking how long would it take to make him look unstable. Encrypted notes to a law firm before she ever mentioned divorce. And payment logs, Venmo, and Zelle transactions marked retainer, advice, and suppress. She'd been building this escape route for a year. Slowly, meticulously. She had backup accounts, anonymous social handles, and a predated lease application for a luxury condo, signed 3 weeks before the cookout. It wasn't a reaction. It was a long con, and it made one thing brutally clear. This wasn't just betrayal. It was extermination. They wanted me out of Benji's life entirely. But I had something they didn't. Truth, proof, and patience sharpened into a weapon. There's a special kind of satisfaction in watching liars smile. It's not joy, it's the slow, curling smugness of someone who thinks they've rigged the game. That was Jill when she walked into court the following Monday wearing pearl earrings and a cream blazer that screamed, "Reasonable woman." I sat 3 rows behind her, pretending to scribble notes. She didn't look at me, which was fine. She wouldn't see me coming anyway. Lauren had filed a motion to block the restraining order citing new evidence of premeditated physical harm to the minor child. The judge, an aging but sharp woman named Madeline Gentry, scheduled an emergency evidentiary hearing. Jill's lawyer, Spencer Grange, looked amused. "You'll need more than paranoia and screenshots, Miss Finch," he said with a half-smile. Lauren smiled back like she'd already won. "I'm not here to argue, just to observe the weight of the truth." The first time I saw Jill falter was when the voicemail played. Her jaw didn't drop. It tightened. A micro-expression. A twitch. Like the mask had slipped just long enough to show the steel beneath. Mark wasn't present, no surprise. Probably sick, or out of state, or hiding in his basement with a bottle and a lawyer on speed dial. But it didn't matter, because I wasn't there for them. Not yet. Back home, I launched Phase 3. I needed a digital Trojan horse, a file that looked harmless but recorded everything it touched. Key logs, webcam activations, audio triggers. I built it from scratch, wrapped it in a fake design proposal for Jill's future condo. Her email was still synced to an old iPad in the house. One attachment. One click. 3 hours later, I had her phone's audio stream. She was talking to Brian, her cousin at the DA's office. "It's unraveling, Brian. He's got something. Mark was supposed to delete that recording. And Mason, he's not breaking like he was supposed to." Brian. "Okay, calm down. I'll talk to Greg at Child Services. Maybe we flip it, make Mason look like he hacked you. He is tech-savvy." That line stopped me cold. Flip it. Make me the villain. They were going to accuse me of cyber-stalking, even as they coordinated perjury, character assassination, and child endangerment. This wasn't just about custody anymore. It was about erasure. So I made the next move feel like their idea. The following night, Jill got an anonymous message. "Check your husband's news search history. He's not who you think he is. See what he's hiding." Link. The link led to a mirror of a private diary I created. Dark thoughts, half-mad ramblings, violent sketches I generated with AI prompts and timestamped to suggest I'd been writing them for months. Every post ended with variations of, "They'll regret touching my son." The fire was only the beginning. Fake. All of it. But terrifyingly real-looking. Within 30 minutes, Jill had forwarded it to her attorney. Within an hour, she sent it to Brian. And by midnight, the file had been opened by a device logged in as DA_BRLang_case temp. That was all I needed. Now I could prove tampering, wire fraud, unlawful search, and evidence manipulation. Because I had built that diary. Planted it. Tracked every interaction. Every illegal open. Every unauthorized access. The hunter had baited the predators. And they bit. By the end of the week, I had what Lauren called the Holy Trinity. Proof of premeditated violence. Proof of coordinated perjury. And proof of illegal surveillance and evidence fabrication by a government official. My enemies thought they were digging a grave for me. They didn't notice the shovel was in my hands. The court would bring legal justice. But humiliation that would come from the court of opinion. And I was about to convene it. The problem with people like Jill and her family wasn't just that they lied, it's that they built their entire lives on appearance. Polished social media, curated reputations, donations to the right charities. All smoke. All mirrors. And in the digital age, illusions burn fast. Phase 4. the Whisper Network. The first step was a silent drop. A tip, anonymous, polite, credible. A local parenting forum Jill frequented had a tight-knit admin team. I sent them a concerning link with a quiet note. Not sure if this is relevant, but a friend said this family's cookout got dangerous. I think a child got hurt. Not sure why no one's talking about it. Just felt wrong to say nothing. Attached was a short, muted clip, Benji's arm bandaged, whispering to a nurse, "Uncle Mark pushed me." It spread like gasoline under glass. Within 24 hours, it appeared in a local Facebook moms group. Then a Twitter thread. Then TikTok. Mom hosts cookout. Child ends up in fire. No one calls 911. Says the kid shouldn't even eat and blames the dad. You're telling me the family lawyered up instead of helping a burned kid? Jill's social world began to splinter. Her friends stopped liking her posts. Her charity partner quietly removed her name from an upcoming gala invite. Even the family portrait she'd posted the week after the accident was suddenly flooded with cryptic comments. Funny how you smile like nothing happened. Where's your stepson in this picture? Heard you hosted a roast. Literally. She disabled comments by noon. Then came the email. From someone I hadn't expected, Stephanie Lang, a woman Jill had quietly bullied out of a PTA leadership spot last fall. Her message was brief. I always knew she was a snake. If you ever need someone to talk about her behind closed doors. I know things. Real things. Happy to chat. Turns out Jill had been quietly cruel for years. Under the surface, passive-aggressive takedowns, undermining other moms at fundraisers, mocking special needs children behind closed doors. Stephanie gave me names. I followed up with 4 of them. 3 agreed to meet. 2 gave sworn affidavits. 1 had a voicemail saved from last winter. God, if I have to deal with that mongrel kid of Mason's one more time, I'll scream. He's like a stray they just keep feeding. Jill's voice. Crystal clear. Undeniable. By the end of the week, I had a growing number of affidavits attesting to Jill's cruelty. A file of audio evidence showing her contempt for Benji. Screenshots of DMs and text messages from people she'd alienated, each one a brick removed from her social pedestal. People were starting to whisper. But I didn't want whispers. I wanted them to scream. So I built a story. A narrative. A timeline. The fire. The betrayal. The scheme. I compiled it into a secure Dropbox folder. Labeled it, in case anything happens to me. And I sent that folder to 2 people. 1. An investigative journalist I once helped expose a school board embezzlement case. 2. A podcaster named Hollis Gray, who specialized in high-profile family betrayals and had 400K subscribers. Not to publish. Not yet. Just to hold. Their responses were identical. Jesus. When you say psychological thriller, you mean real life. Keep me posted. I would. Because when people like Jill build kingdoms on lies, all it takes is a single match to turn it to ash. And I still had one hand on the lighter. That's how I knew it was working. No more Instagram posts of gourmet lattes or Zen mornings in athletic wear. No wine-fueled group texts about self-care through boundaries. The woman who once chronicled her life with hashtags and filtered selfies had gone digital ghost. But silence from a narcissist isn't surrender. It's strategy. They don't retreat because they're beaten. They retreat because they're regrouping. So I watched. From a distance. From the shadows. Because it wasn't just Jill I had to worry about now. It was her cousin Brian, the assistant district attorney who'd been working behind the scenes to reshape me into a villain. I knew he was sweating. He should be. The metadata on his phone had confirmed he opened that fake diary file I'd planted. Opened it. Scrolled it. Took screenshots. Passed them to Spencer Grange, Jill's lawyer, who then referenced them in a sealed motion to the court 2 days later. All of it was illegal. Unauthorized surveillance. Fabrication of digital evidence. Conspiracy to commit fraud in a custody dispute. Lauren was already preparing the report for internal affairs. We just needed to tighten the noose. Meanwhile, Jill made her first move. A knock on my door at 9:42 p.m. Benji's school counselor. I know it's late, she said, but I needed to see you face to face. She sat on the couch like it hurt to breathe. Then she pulled out a printout. Benji wrote this during his journaling hour today. I wasn't supposed to read it. But her voice cracked. I'm a mother too. The paper shook in her hands. I don't think Mom likes me. She says I ruined everything. She says she's trapped with me because of Dad. I heard her tell Uncle Mark she wished the fire had worked. I pretended to be asleep, but I wasn't. Benji's handwriting. Sharp. Precise. Like mine. The counselor's face was pale. I've already filed a mandatory report with Child Protective Services. But I thought you should know before the system buries it. She didn't ask for thanks. She just stood, eyes red, and left with a quiet, "I'm so sorry." I sat there, holding my son's confession, and shook. Not from sadness. From resolve. The next day, Jill finally called. I let it ring 5 times. Then answered like I was half asleep. "Mason," she said, clipped. "We need to talk. Privately." "About what?" There was a pause. Then, "About how we fix this before it gets worse." I smiled. That was the first crack. Not denial. Not manipulation. Not arrogance. Fear. She knew the tide was turning. I agreed to meet. We sat across from each other in a public atrium near the courthouse. Glass walls. Cameras. Witnesses. No place to twist the narrative. She wore oversized sunglasses and a scarf, like she was shielding herself from judgment. Maybe she was. "You've been busy," she said. "You've been criminal," I replied. She laughed, but it was dry. Brittle. "What do you want, Mason?" she asked. "You want me to crawl?" "To beg." "I want you to confess." "To what?" "To everything. The setup. The lies. The fire. The smear campaign. I want it all, Jill. In writing." She leaned forward. "Or what?" I didn't answer. I just slid a phone across the table and hit play. Brian's voice. The call he thought was private. Talking about framing me. Altering evidence. His arrogant little joke. "Mason thinks he's some kind of hacker? I've got files that'll make him look like a domestic terrorist." Jill's face drained of color. "And that," I said softly, "isn't even the worst thing I've got." She left the atrium 10 minutes later. Didn't say another word. But 2 hours later, her lawyer called Lauren. He wanted to negotiate.